Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger is talking about that very long list of conspiracy theories, things that aren't true that President Trump said in that phone call trying to overturn Joe Biden's win. Listen.
For the last 2 months, we've been fighting the rumor whack-a-mole. We've debunked every one of those theories that have been out there, but the President Trump continues to believe them.
Those are conspiracies that, by the way, Raffensperger also tried to take on directly during the call, warning the president not to believe everything he reads on the internet.
Mr. President, the problem you have with social media, people can say...
No, this isn't social media. This is Trump media. It's not social media.
The reality, these things do trace back to social media and the murkier corners of the internet. But it does speak to one thing. And to be clear, they've all been debunked. But it does speak to one thing, and that is the idea that this misinformation that the president continues to amplify can have serious consequences more broadly. I want to bring in now NBC's Ben Collins, who traced the origins of some of these conspiracy theories for us. And Ben, before I get to some of these specific ones, broadly, as we talk about the idea of misinformation here, Ben, I thought it was interesting. You spoke, I believe, with somebody who talked about the point, President Trump can take this slew of junk from the internet and manage to condense it into one quick monologue. He's got this sort of strange skill of being able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the technical term is he's high in his own supply. He has this pipeline of garbage that's fed to him over time, and it's hard to differentiate what he's feeding into that pipeline and what he's receiving from it. And that's kind of the point. It's to create an alternate reality where he is absolved at all times, and every day there's a new way in that part of the internet where he remains the president in a couple months. The big thing to focus on here is the change of how the QAnon pipeline works. Now, QAnon is this conspiracy theory that the world is run by child-eating Satanists or something. The core tenet of that conspiracy theory has sort of moved on. But the people who were interested in it previously, despite realizing all of its garbage, they've created a new network, like a faction on Twitter and on blogs and on 4chan that push new election conspiracies every day because their goal is to keep their God Emperor in office. And the president, which we now know from this phone call, is almost exclusively getting information from that pipeline now.
So talk about that pipeline, because one of those claims that he talked about is this idea about dominion, right? Saying that the voting machines he described as corrupt, that inner parts were moved to other machines, things that on that phone call, elections officials said, not true. What's the reality check and where did this come from?
Sure. So the Dominion conspiracy was primarily pushed by QAnon influencers. There's this guy named Ron Watkins who runs the website 8kun, which used to be 8chan. And that's where Q from QAnon posts, the prophet in that digital cult. A lot of people believe he is, in fact, Q because he can post as Q at any time. He runs the website. He has he has the ability to post as that account whenever he wants to. So some people believe that that is him. Ron Watkins on election day said, I'm not really interested in 8kun anymore. I'm interested in voter fraud. I'm interested in Dominion. And then he posed as an election and voting machine expert on OAN. And the president tweeted this segment several times with Ron Watkins in it, saying he can find all the problems with the Dominion conspiracy and stuff. Now, obviously, these networks have backed off this substantially in the last couple of weeks because of the threat of litigation. Dominion has said, look, if you keep doing this, we are going to sue you. So they have backed away from this over time, but not the people on the internet who feel impervious to this sort of litigation, which feeds the president directly on Twitter through a pipeline that has absolutely nothing to do with regular mainstream media.
Let me get another one from you, because he also repeated these false claims about suitcases or trunks stuffed with ballots, as he said, which also not accurate, right? What are the facts and where did this one come from? This one potentially has some real world implications, or it does too.
Yeah, this one's really particularly insidious. He cites a hashtag on this that targets one specific woman in Georgia, this woman in her 60s. He says that she's a known scammer on this phone call. This woman runs a kiosk at the mall. She sells handbags on Instagram. This is not a known scammer. This is a person volunteering to help with the election. Now, the suitcases, what is he talking about? You probably know nothing about this if you're living in reality. So some of these people, some of these election workers went home because there were so many ballots to count. So they put them in suitcases to lock them up overnight. And they came back and they opened up the suitcases. Now, if you just watch the video of them opening up suitcases of ballots, it looks nefarious and terrible. But guess what? That's not the whole story. They were packing up ballots from the night before they couldn't count. They had to go to sleep. These people had to, they had to be regular people. But conspiracy theories don't make room for regular people. They only make enemies. And that's what the president was trying to create here.
Yeah.
There was this hashtag he mentioned was exclusively used by QAnon accounts. We have numbers on this. It was exclusively a QAnon phenomenon. And it's kind of weird that he knows about it, frankly. He's not expert at the internet. Yeah. So it's weird that he knows about this 4chan conspiracy at all.
You have to imagine, too, Ben, that the president's rebranding of social media as, quote, Trump media perhaps only makes it harder to combat that misinformation. Ben Collins on the Dystopia beat for us. Ben, thank you for all of that. We appreciate you breaking it down.